You're listening to Radio Chatskill. Well, most people don't associate oysters with the Catskills, but Oyster Party, which started as a Brooklyn-based oyster catering business, now has a location in Woodstock, serving fresh oysters, lobster rolls, and other New England-inspired seafood. For this week's Eating Upstate, Aaron Shearer takes us to Oyster Party to find out how a business built around bringing people together over oysters is, wait for it, making waves upstate.
Since 2011, Oyster Party has catered events and hosted pop-ups serving oysters and lobster rolls, alongside fantastic local beverages throughout the Catskills, the Hudson Valley, and the greater tri-state area. Originating in Brooklyn, Oyster Party opened a brick-and-mortar location last November on Route 28 next to the Hotel Dillon in Woodstock. Oyster Party is the subject of today's Eating Upstate. Kyle Needham grew up in Hampton, New Hampshire, a coastal town near Portsmouth, where seafood was a part of everyday life.
So I grew up in a small town in New Hampshire called Hampton. It's a seacoast town. It's just south of Portsmouth, which is more well-known now, I think. And just growing up near the water and the seacoast and in New England in general, just, I think seafood was always around. It was just as, more popular as any other food. It's not like we ate a lot of oysters, though, growing up.
He worked for Whole Foods in Boston before relocating to New York City, where he worked in the seafood department of the Columbus Circle Whole Foods. This started him on a path to a career in seafood.
Yeah, I would say by accident, because I actually worked at Whole Foods before I moved to New York and Boston, but I worked in a different department. I worked in the prepared foods department, and then a friend of mine who worked in the seafood department in Boston was going to New York to open the store as a manager in the seafood, and he said, anytime you come, you can have a job. And I was like, I don't want to work in the seafood department. And he said, okay. But when I went to Columbus Circle, it was so massive.
After Whole Foods, Needham moved on to Wild Edibles, a seafood wholesaler based out of the Bronx. By 2011, he was working as a bartender in Williamsburg. Working in the food world in New York City, he observed that servers didn't know how to shuck oysters. Drawing on his experience and connections in the seafood industry, he launched Oyster Party that same year.
They're still not, honestly. It's a skill. Like anything, you just spend enough time doing it. You can open oysters, but to open them correctly so you don't mangle the meat, to puncture it, and knowing, what a good oyster looks like and things of that nature. 2011, it started. I was actually directly before it started, I was bartending in Williamsburg, and I just asked all my regulars if they would come to an oyster and lobster roll party because I still had the connection from the wholesale seafood company that I worked at in Manhattan, and I was able to get oysters and lobster easily. And so they were like, yeah, it sounds great. So I got 100 people to come, and it was crazy. We sold 1,500 oysters and 10 pounds of lobster made in an hour and a half or something crazy.
In 2013, after the birth of his first child, he moved to the Hudson Valley, first to Accord, then Kingston. For the next decade or so, Oyster Party continued to cater to events and organized pop-ups in New York City, the Hudson Valley, and the greater tri-state area, including the Smorgasburg Market in Brooklyn. Needham had no intention of opening a brick-and-mortar location of Oyster Party until he was drawn to the space on Route 28 near Woodstock.
Field and Supply to doing pop-ups at, Westkill in the early days, and Rose Hill, Hudson Valley Brewery, places like that. We've been with them for a long time. I wouldn't say that we wanted to, because we've always said we didn't want it, and why we didn't. I kept driving by this spot on 28, and I either thought it's way too much money or it's already rented. But I kept driving by and it said, for lease. And so, I finally called the number and talked to the owner, and he told me to come by and look at it. And I had known the space before because previously it was a cafe, and, it was like a perfect size. If we were going to open up anything, the size is what we were looking for. And being on 28, I thought, hey, that's, a heavily trafficked road. This could be something good. And the price was right and the space was great. And so we ended up signing the lease.
Oyster Party opened in Woodstock in November 2025. Oyster Party currently sources its oysters from Righteous Foods, located in Brooklyn. They serve wine from Fjord Vineyards, located in Milton in Ulster County, cider from Rose Hill Farm, located in Red Hook, Dutchess County, and their beer from Westkill Brewing, located in Westkill in Greene County. They continue to cater events and host pop-ups, and in the future, Needham hopes to open another location either in the Catskills or in the Hudson Valley.
We figured we wanted to open up sooner, but as you start to open a restaurant, even on a small scale, things happen. So we never wanted to rush it, and we still had our whole season going on. So instead of trying to open up and failing during, September, October, having to change hours, we decided, hey, why don't we open up in November? And so we did, and just with a long runway to really try to get it right for both the customer experience. We knew our quality has always been there. We're never worried about that. But just, the ins and outs of running a restaurant was fairly new to us. It's just different than our everyday operation. Tons of weddings every year. We do private events at people's homes. We do corporate events at, offices both here in the Hudson Valley and Manhattan, and honestly anywhere in Jersey. And we do pop-ups at wineries, breweries, cideries, or restaurants. Anyone that wants to collaborate, we usually say yes if it piques our interest, to be honest. We really are enjoying where we are right now. I think if we could have another location like this, slightly bigger, I think we want a little bit bigger. You've been there. There's only about 12 seats or so inside, so you can have a slightly expanded, dining room, maybe 12, and maybe a slightly expanded menu. That would be great too. So maybe, another location somewhere in the Hudson Valley or Catskills for that matter. No. If you haven't been down, I just invite everyone to come down and have some oysters and lobster rolls, some wine, beer, or if you don't drink, and the soft drinks. It's great. It's just a chill, sort of unexpected, gem. That's what we want to be like in the Hudson Valley,
Oyster Party is located at 1802 State Route 28 in Woodstock. I'm Erin Shear. Eating Upstate is a production of Radio Catskill.
Next, we'll meet the founder of StoryCorps and learn how Connect 250 is bringing Americans together.